As we pass the mic, I invite you to say your name and tell us where you're from. If you're on Zoom, please introduce yourself in the chat box and it will be read aloud in the fellowship. So we'll start with the people in the room. And if you're new and are visiting, please raise your hand and Flo will take the mic and go around and you can all introduce yourselves.
Hi, good morning. My name is Amanda Painter. I'm not so new and I'm not visiting. I do live here in Chapala and have for a few years, but glad to come back here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Colleen Beery and I'm back after about a year and a half. So I'll be here the whole month. I'm really thrilled.
My name is Terry Coleman and I live in South Carolina, but I got my residency card for temporary on Friday. So, and I know Matt and Liz from Hendersonville, North Carolina, so.
Hi, my name is Betty. I live in Marisol. I've been here 5 years. I'm Bob's neighbor and I'm here to listen to the presentation today. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kimberly Kiernan, and I'm here with my friend Angela, who got in touch with me and said, "You've got to come to this." It's my first time in anything Unitarian, so thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Lily Henley, and I am visiting to hear the speaker today, but I love Unitarian Universalism.
Do we have any visitors on Zoom this afternoon?
No visitors on Zoom.
Okay. Well, welcome to all our visitors and newcomers, both in person and on Zoom. Here at LCUUF, we offer a wide variety of services on various topics presented by our members, our outside guests, like the two presenters who are going to be here with us these next 2 weeks, who are coming from Puerto Vallarta, and also our minister, Matt Alsbaugh. I'm looking for Matt. Where is he? Oh, he's up there. Okay. We hope you return to sample this whole variety of thought and belief. Okay, now we're going to begin our service by lighting the chalice. Our chalice words today are by Katie Romano Griffin. Come, let us enter this space of hope and community. Come, let us enter this space with our sorrows, our joys, our passion. Come, let us enter this space with the stories of our ancestors, for their strength of wisdom beats in all of our hearts. Come into this space, mindful that together we are building a future for other generations. Come, please, into this space and let us contemplate and learn. And I think we're going to do a lot of learning this week. Is the chalice lit? Okay. Now, having lit the chalice, let us sing these words together. We kindle this light in celebration for the love that we share. Now, every week when we come together to lament with, celebrate with, and care for one another in our community. Love is not only at the center of our UU values, it's also the opening that invites us all here to lament, celebrate, and care as we briefly share our personal joys, our sorrows, and our milestones. There's power in sharing as we hold each other in community. And I have learned that a lot, that when I share out loud to other people who are on my wavelength, I receive a lot back. So just a sentence or two is enough. We'll start with the folks in the room to give those on Zoom a chance to type joys and sorrows into the chat, and they'll be read aloud here in the fellowship. So,
Hi, Colleen again here. I am grateful for a wonderful young man named Julio who stopped me on the way here and said I had a flat tire, and he went and changed it for me. That's just how Mexican people are, beautiful.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Lynn Cleek, and my mom, Valerie Markham, turned 95 on Friday. And she would be here. She was going to come this morning, but she didn't think she could do two things. And she's going to the Northern Lights this afternoon, so she can watch this on Zoom.
My name is Adele St. Pierre, and I have the unexpected joy of finding a first floor apartment near the Malecon, and I'm moving September 1st. Yay.
Hello, my name is Ellie Contreras. Many of you are familiar with the sharing group for people with early onset dementia who had an amazing performance and another one at Open Circle. And many people expressed interest in being part of that. And I'm delighted to share with you that on August 21st, we're starting with a new group. And we will have room for about 6 people, and we already have some people signed up. So I have some postcards here with more information. So if you know anybody who like to have that support and share with others in the same situation, they can contact us. Thank you.
and I have a joy that I'm here in Mexico. The reason, one reason was that my husband and I, excuse me, were in Alaska a few weeks ago, and we had a flat tire, reminiscent of your story. But, and we were able to get the tire, you know, the jack up on the car, up on the jack. And between my husband and me and another person, we were able to change the tire, and it worked out fine. But what I wanted to say is we were on the corner of a very busy street, and all these trucks and these big bronzy guys were there passing us, looking at us. And I would say I counted 20. And in all that time, no one stopped. And so I turned to my husband and I said, now, aren't you glad you live in Mexico? Okay, we're going to go on. The care candle is next, and the care candle is that large white one. Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any joys and sorrows that were shared on Zoom?
Yes. Terry actually jumped on as a visitor, and congratulations on your new temporal status, and enjoy Mexico. Then from, oh, no, that's it. Sorry. The rest are just comments.
Any more joys and sorrows before we move on? Okay, now this candle from our care team, we like to represent the joys and sorrows spoken and witnessed today, as well as those we hold in the secret and the silent sanctuary of our hearts. Let us share a moment of silence. As we all know, the work of our fellowship within these walls and beyond takes our time, treasure, and talents. The offering we take each Sunday is an opportunity to recommit to this place and to these people. It is as much a ritual as lighting our chalice. It is a reminder of that form of love we call generosity. It is how we show that we belong, believe it is important to worship together, to help our community, and to say yes to the values of our faith. So as we pass the baskets, and they are starting to be passed now, if you're new here or you are struggling to hold things together, let the basket pass you by. Your presence is more than enough and is a gift to us. So here come the baskets.
Come on in. Buenos días. Hello. Voy a limpiar. Okay. Ahorita vengo.
Please note that we give the money collected at each service to an organization providing services to our lakeside community. For August, we are donating the basket to Asociación Pro Mexico, and the description is on the monitor that you can see. We take these words by UU Minister Erica Hewitt. She says, we give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something much bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. May this offering sustain and grow the life and the work of the community. May we give in love and in hope for a better world. In keeping with the topics for the 2 weeks, we are featuring some wonderful Mexican music. So may I introduce you to Elise Chavez Navarro, and she has agreed to play for us this afternoon, and she will be playing Corazón Espinado. You all know what corazón means, right? Everybody knows corazón? What does espinado mean? Spiny? Okay, it's like, it hurts, it's prickly, it's sad, right? So, and they say, you ready?
Inspirado corazón, por más que intento olvidarla, en mi alma no da razón. Mi corazón abrazado, dolido y abandonado. A ver, vamos a ver si ven mi amor. Oh, y qué dolor nos quedó. Ay, corazón espinado. Ay, cómo me duele el amor. Y cómo duele el corazón cuando nos viene entregado. Pero no olvides mujer que algún día dirás, ay, cómo me duele el amor. Ay, corazón espinado. Ay, cómo me duele el amor. Ay, el corazón espinado. Person's got those amazing interests. swan that's below. More swan that's below. More swan that's below.
That's just the first of a few. At the reorganization meeting of the UU Social Action Team a few months ago, and many in the room are social action team members. Just raise your hand. Great. Larry, are you? Yeah. Okay. The concept of members wanting and needing more information about Mexicans, our neighbors with whom we live every day, came up. Of course, many of us are learning Spanish so we can at least integrate with the locals in everyday situations, restaurants, shops, construction, maintenance situations. But we want to learn a lot more, and it might be a little bit more difficult. So how does the history of this country affect the Mexicans who live here now? We want to know more about the customs, the culture, but find it difficult to gain this information in our daily activities. When I was living in Puerto Vallarta, I met a man named Dan Grippo, who was giving lectures at the International Friendships Club on history, customs, and culture of Mexico and Mexicans. The social action team decided to invite him here to give us a week-long series of lectures on Mexican history. So Dan had the brilliant idea to expand the series and invite Carlos Navarro, who is the organizer of an organization called Connecting with Mexico. And his organization focuses on Mexico, culture, politics, diplomacy, and current events. Carlos will be here the week of August 9th through 14th. I hope you get to go to all of this. Dan visited Mexico in 1980, and it was love at first sight. Over the years, he has traveled, done research, and lived in a number of Mexican cities. For the past 25 years, he has lived mostly in Puerto Vallarta, where he now resides. And I met him in Puerto Vallarta, and we've been friends for over 20 years. Amazing. Dan holds master's degrees in both religious studies, Latin American studies, and he has a PhD in Latin American history, specializing in Mexico. So we're with the right person this week. Since 2005, he has lectured every winter at the International Friendship Club of Puerto Vallarta, as well as taught at LCS in Ajijic, you know LCS, and the Oaxaca Learning Library. Today, Dan will give us an overview of his 4 lectures, beginning tomorrow and running through the week, every day, every morning, from 10 to 1, right here in the sanctuary. You don't have to register, just come. And remember, this series is being recorded and will be on Zoom as well. And if you want the Zoom link, it will be available outside this room on the white table. And Larry, you want to raise your hand? This is Larry. And he is going to be passing out all the information about Zoom. I hope a lot of you come here though. But anyway, you can do what you want. So let's welcome Dan with a rousing applause. Bienvenidos.
Thank you, Didi. Thank you. Gracias. Qué bonita canción. It's that song was actually written by, it's interesting. I was taking an Uber here yesterday and the driver had he was playing music by Maná, which is a Mexican group. And the lead person in that group wrote this song and then collaborated with Carlos Santana. Most of us remember, and that's actually Carlos on the guitar there, as you could probably recognize that. And so it's a wonderful song, and it's a good lead into our series, you know, in many ways. So I was going to tell you a little bit about me, but Dee Dee did a wonderful job and with the introduction. So I'll dispense with that. I do want to thank Dee Dee. I want to thank Matt, Michael, and all the people who are making this possible, and all of you, of course. But it's a very generous offering on the part of the community here. And it's nice to be back. I spent, well, I think 4 or 5 times I was over at LCS with Dee Dee's invitation there. So it's good to be back. It's been a few years. So I would just start by saying that all history is family history. And the theme that I'm actually working with this week is Mexican family, family, gender, and sexuality in Mexican history. So we're going to be looking at issues related, or related to family, to gender, and to sexuality throughout the whole historical arc of time. And so I thought today it'd be good to have the big picture, or the long view, as we say, and look across time for persistent patterns. And I'll give you just kind of an overview. In the first persistent pattern across time, and we're going back with the indigenous through the conquest, the colonial period, independence period, 19th century, 20th century, now 21st century. So we've got a lot to cover, but we're looking for patterns. So some of the persistent patterns over time that we'll be dealing with, tradition versus modernity. That comes up over and over again. In the colonial era, you've got a tension between the indigenous vision of gender, which was much more complementary. In other words, male and female had different roles, very distinct roles. They did have gender roles, but they were complementary. They were not unequal. And the Spanish came with a vision of patriarchy, which is a male authority over the household. So it's a very different kind of approach to gender relations. So that's one pattern. In the independence era, we have Catholic tradition struggling against what we could call Republican ideals in terms of independence, separation of church and state. You've all heard that, right? Well, that doesn't come automatically in Mexico. Maybe you've noticed. It's still, the church is very powerful and has been very much involved in family, gender, and sexuality through the centuries. Then we move up into an era called the Porfiriato, which is an era of modernization with Porfirio Diaz at the end of the 19th century, where a lot of European ideas start coming in. And the Mexican elites wanted to imitate the European elites. So we'll look at that versus Mexican customs, so we have a tension there between people asserting, Mexican identity and those saying, well, we've got to be more like those Europeans. Then we have the revolutionary period, 1910 to 1917 is the Mexican Revolution. But the revolution extends for several decades beyond that in terms of its impact. And it's still felt today, really. But we have some radical changes in gender roles beginning to happen. Women went off to fight, las soldadas, right? And so we've got a lot going on with the upheaval of the revolution. And then contemporary, we've got global feminism and the impact in Mexico, the feminist movement in Mexico, very powerful. And also local cultural ideals. Then we're going to look at economic factors that drive and influence gender, I won't go into all the details today, but there's a lot of systems that impact the way families coalesce and shape. You know, we have hacienda systems and encomienda systems, which we can go into, industrial development, economic crisis, globalization, a lot of big themes here, but you know, the personal is the political is the personal. So when we look at family history, we're looking at all of history because there's an interaction going on constantly between the individual, the family, the community, and then these wider forces. We'll look at regional and class variations because those are important. Urban versus rural. You get that right. Urban versus rural differences persist over time periods, and families are quite different in urban settings and rural settings in Mexico. Northern and southern Mexico, there's differences there. Elite versus popular classes. A lot of differences in gender expectations. And then also among different groups, indigenous, mestizo, European traditions. A lot of diversity there. And so another overarching theme, along with those patterns that persist, is fundamental transformations. So we're moving, for instance, in gender relations from that sense of complementary to hierarchical in the Spanish patriarchy system, and then to what we might call contested equality. Emphasis on contested, right? So I'll go back, excuse me, through pre-Columbian times and colonial independence, modern Mexico. I've got a few things to touch on in all of these areas. Looking at the evolution of family structures, extended kinship networks that were available in the indigenous world, you know, that you belong to a much sense of communal identity, right? Which we see in the communal lands that indigenous communities had and try to still maintain to some extent. And then all the changes that come about through the patriarchal hierarchy in the colonial period, where women were subordinated legally in many ways, but they also had strategic adaptations and resistance. So we want to avoid, you know, casting women in these periods as the victims who helpless, you know, very not at all accurate. In fact, there were the domestic realm of life, for instance, had a lot of power, and women controlled a lot of the household income and the choices made, the food production, textiles. These are, you know, very important areas of life. I mean, the men were doing the warfare, you know, but that's not terribly productive if you haven't noticed. Warfare doesn't usually bring good results and or ever bring good results, in my opinion. But at any case, we have the power of the women is also, it's been only recently, in recent decades, have historians and other researchers really zeroed in on the sources, you know, because of course, the men have been writing the history and the victors write the history, right? That truism is. So we have to come, and in historical research, we have to come to a new understanding. There's been a lot of turns in the historical research towards looking at marginalized voices, you could say, including the women, and where do we find them speaking about their own lives rather than having men write about the women? So those sources are important, and but we also have a lot of interesting sources from church work. Inquisition records are very interesting when you look at the trials that were held in the way that women were treated. Witchcraft is a very interesting topic to look at. The way that surfaces in power dynamics, gender dynamics. Sexuality had a sacred aspect and a ritual aspect in indigenous life. So we move in that era from a sacred sexuality to a controlled sexuality in the colonial period, where the Spanish had rules about these, you know, what kinds of relations would be permitted and what kind wouldn't be. And there are some surprises there, actually, we'll go into. and then more of a liberated sense of sexuality, which has been emerging in recent decades. Another theme is state versus church authority. Who's going to decide these questions? Marriage, for instance, was a big struggle for the state to assert control of marriage. The church has always controlled that. And that can be a very lucrative institution to control and a very important one in many ways. So the civil ceremony, and as you probably know, in Mexico, you're not legally married unless it's a civil service. So it's even gone further than you would say in the US, where religious leaders can be authorized to perform a marriage and you don't have to go down to City Hall to have it ratified, right? You can do that, but you don't have to. There's civil marriage and religious marriage, but not in Mexico. You can have a church ceremony, but it won't count legally in Mexico. Because they, during the revolution, because of the struggle between church and state, Mexico truly went secular, you could say. The churches do not belong to the Catholic churches here, or any church is technically government property. It's leased out or allowed to recognize church institutions can function in these spaces, but the state maintains a great deal of control over these things now. So we'll look at private and public spheres of life in these different eras, and how women slowly gained political participation, and how domestic violence has moved from private family matter to a public concern, right? That's a big movement. And so we have fascinating stories of the way domestic violence has been treated over time, reproductive decisions. We'll look at persistent inequalities, ongoing struggles, economic marginalization of women. Is you can still see it very visibly, the kinds of wage earning opportunities that are available to Mexican women versus men. The informal economy, which is, does have a disproportionate impact upon women. Care work that remains unpaid and undervalued, but is largely carried out by women. That's a cross-cultural phenomena, right? Gender-based violence is important to look at. It has changed, but not disappeared. Are you all aware of like the femicide at the border? A number of women who have been killed near the border, near the maquiladoras and all that area. So those are some of the themes. We'll look at revolutionary moments of catalysts for change during the Mexican Revolution, other moments, the feminist movement. And then just the implications for understanding Mexican history and society, culture, One key thing there is cultural syncretism. Syncretism is a big word that means, the coming together of different traditions. So if you walk into a church, especially a colonial church that goes back 4 or 5 centuries, and you look around at the artwork, which, those churches were built by indigenous people, right? Often using the stones from their own pyramids, which were knocked down, and then they were forced to build, these new cathedrals. That's what Mexico City is. The cathedral is built from the stones of the Mexican pyramid next door that you could see the ruins of. But the indigenous managed in that building process to insert certain symbols around the church that, had indigenous significance, sacred significance in indigenous worldview. That's what I mean by, syncretism. Or we saw Guadalupe, wonderful figure. We'll spend time looking at her very multi-layered meaning, as representing Catholicism, representing indigenous women. Juan Diego, her attendant, what he represents. Fascinating. So that syncretistic adaptations that go on between the two cultures, and that carries across sexuality, gender relations, family, and yeah, the centrality of family. It's still very strong in Mexico, as we can see. Mexican families have adapted, changed. Globalization's affected them. A lot of the men have had to go north looking for work, or at least in earlier decades when that was even possible, right? The tremendous suffering around issues of migration. Last year, I try to do a different theme every year just to keep me, honest, having to learn, which is actually the whole point of it, right? To keep on learning. So this is all new material for me, to really try to go in depth, but you find that, as I said, all history is family history. So we're going over a lot of key historical themes that I've, dealt with in other areas. But last year's theme was the history of the borders, because I knew what was coming. We could all see it after the election. So I thought that would be a theme for last year. And it is amazing to see how the impact on Mexican families of this, especially a system that has never been made honest, so that people can work in dignity and, still maintain their families and all that. So we'll see the impact of these movements on the families in Mexico today, and we'll end with some of the contemporary social challenges and, the need to look what's called intersectional approach to history, which shows that gender inequality, for instance, intersects with class and ethnic and regional and other inequalities. So you can't just isolate one issue and take it out of context, To be indigenous and to be a woman in Mexico, sometimes called, being doubly challenged, so we say, because you're dealing with gender issues as well as, racism, which is real, in terms of indigenous and non-indigenous. It's very, very much an issue still in Mexico. And just the value of cultural sensitivity, to not assume that our own models of things like sexuality and family are universal, right? They're very flexible, and the adaptations and the things we can learn from indigenous life, from colonial, Mexican families, they can give us ideas too on how to, creatively approach these subjects today. So I think that's basically it, that the family is continuing to evolve just as all history is. And that's kind of where I'm going this week. We'll take it chronologically. We'll see how far we go each day. It'll be pretty informal. I want to also engage in dialogue with you and questions and answers. I like that because we can go in a number of directions with these. I don't want to just be, lecturing all day. And so I'll try to keep it fresh. And you can help me do that with your own, curiosity. And yeah, have I left anything out? Probably. I've left 4 days of classes out, but that's what this week is for. And I really appreciate, the invitation to be here. And I hope you find these themes engaging. I think they're very timely. And I'll try to make your time worthwhile if you're able to make it. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. And having attended a number of his sessions, either here at LCS or back in Puerto Vallarta, I'm still coming back for more. Because of course I've learned things from books and from, living here and hearing people talk about, the history. But he does it in such a interesting, he just captures you. I hope you will be captured as well as I have been. Once you hear him this week and you anticipate Carlos coming next week, you might be interested in joining the two of them on at a question and answer luncheon, which is being planned for Saturday, August 9th. So a week from yesterday, and it's going to be at Mannix 2, and the cost is 250 pesos. And it is going to be an open discussion. You can ask these two guys anything, and I think they'll know most of the answers, but they could also say, I don't know, I'll find out. Larry Peel is going to be at the table outside the sanctuary to take your reservation. He can accept your money for the reservation, 250 pesos, and he can tell you the selection of food. And I suppose I'll tell you the selection of food. One is a chili en nogado. The other is a mole con pollo. And the third is a vegetarian plate for those vegetarians. So you can tell Larry outside and give him your money. And I'm really looking forward to just hearing whatever we have to ask, okay? Or if you want, instead of giving the money to Larry, now he will be here every day for each of the sessions. So if you don't have the money today, you can bring it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Or if you want, and you're over there, you can go over to Mannix yourselves. Mannix is, the new Mannix is on Carretera Poniente, number 111 in Ajijic to make your reservation. So I hope to see a lot of you, not only here or maybe on Zoom, whatever you choose, for the week, and then to see you at the luncheon. And then you'll get an idea of who Carlos is, because Carlos has a very different style. He's going to be talking. He's Mexican. He lived all over the world, but I'll talk about Carlos when it's time. Okay. Elisa, are you still here? Elise. She is going to perform another song for us. It's called Despelado. Y yo no comprendo lo que quiere decir despelado. What does it mean?
Desvelado is when you don't sleep very well, or you wake up earlier, more, too much earlier or too much, in the night, like 1 p.m., 2 p.m., and you don't sleep very well. It's like, oh, I'm desvelado.
Oh, I'm desvelado. Okay. Anybody ever have that experience? Waking up? Great. Okay. You're on, Elise.
Actually, this song, it was right for Selena Quintanilla when she died. You know Selena Quintanilla? It's a famous singer. Selena Quintanilla. Será que yo encontré una dulce ternura que me llena de placer. Cuando la oigo hablar, de ella me enamoré. Que nunca la conocí y sueño con su querer. Y en sus brazos quiero dormir, escucho cada día en la radio, seguro que la vuelvo a ir. Por el cielo busco mis estrellas, a la luna quiero subir, voy desvelado, por esas calles esperando encontrar a esa voz de ángel que quiero amar. ¿Dónde andará? Voy desvelado y mi deseo no me deja descansar, porque despierto y yo me pongo a llorar. Hoy seguiré desvelado y sin amor. Será fue que yo encontré una voz de ternura que me llena de placer. Cuando la oigo hablar, con ella me enamoré. Que nunca la conocí y sueño en su querer. Y en sus brazos quiero dormir, escucho cada día en la radio, seguro que la vuelvo a oír. Por el cielo busco mis estrellas, a la luna quiero subir por desvelado, por esas calles esperando encontrar a esa voz gigante que quiero amar. ¿Dónde andarás? Por desvelado, y mi deseo no me deja descansar, porque despierto y yo me pongo a llorar. Hoy seguiré desvelado y sin amor.
We're gonna hear, can you hear me? Oh, now you can. Okay, we're gonna hear two more songs, and one I think you'll know. So I'm just wait a little bit and you'll hear. Great. Mexican history is a rich tapestry woven in threads of ancient civilizations, colonial rule, a fierce struggle for independence, culminating in a modern nation that continues to evolve. And Dan is certainly on top of it and will be telling us all about it. Today, Mexico stands as a vibrant nation, shaped by its diverse heritage and its ongoing journey of self-discovery. Thank you, Dan, so much for sharing your love and knowledge of the country with us, and for Lise for sharing the music. I must say I'm really looking forward to these 2 weeks. Okay, so now we're going to extinguish, that's the word I'm looking for, extinguish our chalice. We lit this chalice as an act of faith, a reminder, a redeclaration, a rekindling of the trust that darkness can never shut out the light, that kindness is more powerful than we know, that humility and accountability allow us to change, that together we can most certainly bend the arc of this beautiful universe towards justice. And actually we are seeing little inklings of how we are bending that arc towards justice again. Let us extinguish our chalice with these words which we read together. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the light of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the first of Dan's lectures, and remember, you can sign up for the luncheon, the Saturday luncheon at 12 o'clock at Mannix with Larry right outside. And also, if you want the information about watching any part of the next 2-week program on Zoom, you can, Larry has the paper and the link, and so you can do that as well. But I'd love to see a lot of you back here. So, Elise is going to perform another Mexican song for us, for our postlude, and this is called Amor Prohibido. We know what amor means. What does prohibido mean? Prohibited. You're on.
And actually, song, this song, it's from Selena Quintanilla, the singer I told you before. Very famous.
I wish we could all dance.
Como dices, nunca quiero verte hoy. Espero ese momento en que escuche tu voz. Y cuando al fin estemos juntos los dos. Y podré querer tu padre y tu mamá. A mí solo importa nuestro amor. Te quiero, amor confido, murmura por las calles. Porque somos de distintas sociedades. Amor prohibido, nos dicen todo el mundo. Que el dinero no importa en ti y en mí, ni en el corazón. Oh no, baby. Aunque soy pobre, todo esto que te doy vale más que el dinero, porque si es amor. Y cuando al fin estemos juntos los dos, ¿qué importa que digan también la sociedad? A mí solo importa nuestro amor. Te quiero, amor prohibido, murmura por las calles. Porque somos de distintas sociedades. Amor prohibido, nos dice todo el mundo. El dinero no importa en ti y en mí, ni en el corazón. Oh no, baby.
Our service is over. You can stay standing. Our service is over. Our worship is, our worship is over, and our service begins. Go in peace and with a purpose. And as you depart, listen to the music. Elise is going to be playing Cielito Lindo. And I know many of you know the words. So if you know the words, sing along as you leave the sanctuary. Thank you, everybody. Nice to have you.
Do you like mariachi? De la Sierra Morena, cielo lindo que un par de ojitos negros, cielito lindo de Macabá. Ay, 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 canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegra, cielito lindo los corazones. De tu casa la mía, cielito lindo, no más que un paso. Ahora que estamos solos, cielito lindo, dame un abrazo. Ay, 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 canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegran, cielito lindo, los corazones. Canta y no llores, porque love and peace